Hey guys, in this video I want to show you how I fixed my countertops and some feedback on the countertops currently. Hey everyone, Joni here. I want to update you guys. It's a long overdue video, I know, but I want to update you guys on my countertops. 2 or 3 years ago, I took the plunge to refinish my countertops, and there is a detailed video on that on my YouTube channel that you can go check out. But if you watch towards the end, there was definitely some flaws in that finish. So I used Gianni, I think the brand is Gianni countertops, and I said it in my video too. In the end of that video, and about a year later, I had yellow countertops. The finish started yellowing. I had chips in my counter, and I'll show this all in the video as I'm talking. I had the bubbles that came up were all over the place. They had food and dirt filled in them, dust, whatever. It was really gross. I really was not happy with them. So much though that I ended up sanding them down and redoing them about a year later. My husband went on an elk hunt and I thought, this is the perfect time. He's gone, and no one can touch the countertops for so long till the epoxy cures. So that was my opportunity to redo them. I know a lot of you guys commented on my previous video about potential issues with the bubbles, like what I may have done wrong. And I really appreciate it. It helped me the second time whenever I did it to be more aware of how I'm laying it out, how I'm mixing it, and how I'm spreading it out too to prevent the bubbles, and also to use a propane torch. So on Gianni's instructions, it said it had an additive in it that would have helped the bubbles self-rising, and as I described in my previous video, it just didn't do that. It bubbled even after I used the heat gun. So I just wasn't happy with it, and I was not happy with the finish after, even a year down the road. It started to yellow. I had rings. If I set anything heavy on the countertop, I would have rings left over. And you guys said the paint could have caused gases, so I was really shocked on that one too. One thing I'm gonna add too, after I did the epoxy by Gianni, I went back and I reread the reviews on Amazon and on Google, and a lot of the customers' reviews said to use blowtorch or propane torch and a heat gun to prevent the bubbles, because it would still bubble. And I had bought it, read that, forgot about that, but I followed the instructions that the company gave me. And like I said, I was not very happy with the company and their follow-up and helping me solve the issue. So I just didn't trust them further on. So especially with this big of a job in my kitchen. So I went with a new company. I really researched, I watched tons of YouTube videos, read reviews. I found Stone Coat Countertops, and this is not sponsored by them whatsoever. I bought the product, I used the product, and I've been using it obviously on my countertops. It's been probably a year and a half, 2 years, I want to say. I don't know, I need to check that timeline. Probably a year, at least, yes, a year. I want to show you guys how I redid my countertops from the previous epoxy mess up that happened. I redid them with the Stone Coat Countertops, and I used the coloring in the epoxy, so everything on top of it has epoxy. It's no paint mixed in, except for maybe some spray paint, like what they recommend, what they use, pigmentation, powder. And I'll give you a review at the end of the video too. I have lots of tips on the second time sanding down, re-epoxying, and in this video I'm working with my mom very quickly. We are sanding, we are prepping, and then we start epoxying. So you can see it right here in the light a little bit better, but here's a spot where we had poured the epoxy and it must have missed here, and I went back in, I think a little too late, and tried to fill it, and it just left a divot. So I'm gonna try to fix that. Here is the bubbles you can see, which you can see where I wiped with a rag. It's not really that clean yet. But you can see all the dust and the dirt that collects in these little divots. So this is the main reason why I'm going to do a colored epoxy pour, just because look at all of these little black dots. And then you can see, let's see right here, there's, I think that's Tylenol, or some kind of medicine that got onto my countertop. Here is one chip that I have, and then I realized I had one over here too, where the kids sit, and I'm not sure what caused this one. Here is some more. Here is a mustard stain. It's pretty yellow right here, but you can just see all these bubbles. Anyways, there's that, and that's just, you can see all these bubbles, how it bubbled really bad. So you want to remove any rugs, decor, or any items you don't want epoxy on, because it gets everywhere. And I am not joking. I learned that the first time. It will leak through somehow, way or another. So be sure you pick up any rugs, like I said, decor that you don't want to have to touch later on or move later on, because your hands will be covered with epoxy. Be sure to sweep the floors, any dog hair, dirt, whatever. You don't want it getting blown up. We have floor vents, so you don't want to get blown up on the countertops like it would mine, and I did get a dog hair somehow in this. Make sure you clean the surface, and the reason you want to clean before you sand is if you have any like grease or dirt on your countertop or food, you don't want to sand that into the surface of your countertop. So just a tip on that one. And next, I started to tape off, and I learned my lesson the last time. You want to double tape. So what I'm doing first is I'm using the purple, I think this is 3M or a frog tape. I can't remember exactly. I use so many different brands of tapes. But I am putting the delicate, it's the delicate one, tape down. And I'm putting it down first. I'm putting it up as close as I can under and on the countertop, and then when I'm done with this, I will go back over with my plastic drop, and I will tape with just some cheaper Scotch tape type masking tape. Sorry, can't think of the word. There you go, masking tape. And I go back over the whole surface just to make sure it covers. And if you don't think you have tape, just put it there, because somehow this epoxy, it can leak through. So you just want to be double sure. So the last time we did this, I used plastic on the floor and walked on the floor. I ruined a pair of shoes, and the epoxy got on the bottom of my shoes, and it would track on the plastic, and it would pick up the plastic as we walked. So we learned our lesson on that one. We bought shoe covers, which you're gonna want. I would highly recommend getting some shoe covers, and then put brown paper on the floor, so whenever you're dripping and you're running like back and forth, left to right, you're gonna get drips under your feet, and when you walk, you won't walk on top of the plastic picking it up. It gets really annoying, but the brown paper worked best. We liked it the best. It was worth the time, the extra effort of putting it down too. Once you get everything taped down, ready to go, make sure you tape your backsplash and tape it up a little bit higher. I think I did another layer of tape just so it didn't get up higher on my backsplash, because it does get a little messy and you don't want to have to worry about it. And scrape around any edges if you have caulking or anything like that, or if you can remove your sink, your stove, I would do that too. It's just probably be easier than having to tape around it like I did, because that epoxy gets everywhere. I'm not joking. I thought I had everything taped off and safe to go, and I still got epoxy on my cabinet and on my faucet and on my dishwasher. So next, I kind of use my hand to feel where the bumps and stuff are, and I use a very fine, I think it's either 220 grit sandpaper or maybe a little bit finer than that. And I sanded down the edges where the runs were on the sides and then where the bubbles were. And if I had any divots that were real heavy, I made sure to sand those spots too. But I just used my hand and I kind of felt, and then I would sand with the sander right after it. If you have any holes to fill or cracks to fill, I would definitely recommend looking at Stone Coat Countertops videos and even some more videos on YouTube about how to do that. I didn't do any of those steps, but I know it is recommended if you have gaps and cracks in your countertop. So be sure to set up a designated area for your epoxy mixing. Even if you need to grab like a little pop-up table, you don't want to be tracking epoxy from the kitchen to the dining room. The kitchen's covered, you're going to be going into the dining room and you're going to be tracking that epoxy in there, and it does not come off. So I just made my stovetop a little epoxy mixing area. I had all my paint, my pigmentations, my mixing sticks, all of it right there for me to grab quickly. So be sure to follow the directions on Stone Coat Countertops website or on the back of the epoxy bottles and mix correctly. Like I said, if you mix real crazy and add bubbles into the epoxy, then of course you're going to have bubbles in your epoxy pop up too. But hey, this time we're going to use a propane torch and we're going to torch those bubbles out, and you guys can see the end results for how it all turned out. But I used lots of different colors in this. I used a gray, a white. I had a white pearlescent pigmentation. I even had like a gray pigmentation that was pretty dark. I didn't use a whole lot of it. And then the spray paints I used, just the ones that they recommended on some of their videos that they used. So I just grabbed a bunch of different variations because I was going to go with the same marble graining that I had in my countertop, but I wanted it to look more authentic. I didn't want it just like tiger stripes down my down my countertops. I wanted something that had more depth and design in it. So I poured kind of white first, and then I went in with just a little bit of dark at a time. I kind of learned that if the more dark you apply, the harder it is to get back off, and you'll actually see me scrape some of this that I just poured out back up because I put way too much on. But it didn't show any mistakes like that. It like levels out like wet butter, or I don't even want to say wet butter. That's a weird word. It like levels out like water almost, in a sense where it mixes together so well. And that's why I just started using my hands. I was like, that's the easiest way to kind of blend it and manipulate it. And yeah, I just kind of went with it and feathered it out and did what I thought would kind of make it look more, I want to say like marble granite in a sense. So yeah, there is lots of Stone Coat Countertop and just a lots of epoxy videos out there that you could kind of get an idea of like how you want to blend your countertop together. So I highly recommend videos again. I also used lots of white back on top of the dark gray just to kind of lighten it up. And then I had isopropyl alcohol too I sprayed, but you don't want to do a whole lot because I think it can leave some divots. It didn't on mine. You want to just be careful like not to dump it out. I sprayed it. Anyways, I just thought it was really cool. I went back over it with some spray paint and sprayed it, and then I did the isopropyl alcohol, and it kind of made this really cool, I don't know, effect on it. Just reminded me of elementary school whenever we did like salt mixed on watercolor paints, or like sugar or the alcohol, and how it all blended together. Yeah, it kind of brought me back to those days. And so I just kind of went with it. I was hoping for the best because anything was better than what I previously had.
Yeah, I love how it turned out. And yes, be sure to go down the side. Yeah, that's me reminding myself right there that I need to go down the sides of my countertops too. Actually, that was probably my mom saying, hey, Joni, yeah, you need to focus on the sides too. I'm glad she's always there to help me, because I don't know what I would do without her. Every one of these projects that I get started doing, she's like, are you crazy? And then she's right there beside me helping me do it. And then it's like we step back and we're like, oh, okay, maybe we're not so crazy. Okay, we got this. We can do this. And then sometimes we're like, okay, why did we do this? Why did we sign ourselves up for this project? But that's usually how we do it together. So it's just fun when we do it together. So here I am grabbing the side of the paint stick, and I am just kind of chopping horizontal marks in it, because that's kind of what was in the picture. So that was my inspiration. I knew I wasn't going to achieve that picture perfectly, because I had so much dark already, like from the holes or the bubbles. And I just needed to blend in some of those marbling that I had done before. So yeah, anyways, I just went with it. I don't know what else to say, but went with it. There's the blowtorch, not the blowtorch. Oh my gosh, the propane torch. My mom was on propane torch duty, so once I got it started, I went on to the other side, because what you don't see behind the camera is I'm also doing this farther side down towards our coffee bar. Yeah, so I'm also blending down there and doing my thing, and she's just right there beside me taking the propane torch, mixing paint for me, or epoxy, and yeah, getting me all set up, helping me out. So super thankful that she was there for me to help me, because I wouldn't have been able to do it without her. And one thing I will say is, if you have a big kitchen like we do, or you have a big island, I would mix one set and then mix the other set of epoxy, because the epoxy starts to harden after so many minutes. I think it's like 45 minutes, I want to say. I could be totally wrong. But you don't understand, like when you're doing that big back, like the back part of the countertops, it takes up a lot of time, especially when you're trying to blend it, get the bubbles to pop, all that good stuff. And then by the time you get to the island to start pouring it out, the epoxy is already setting up, so you can't really manipulate it like you can prior. So just be sure to stop and remix, because that was one mistake we did make, is that we should have stopped and remixed. So here is right after the epoxy is poured and we are done. So I'm just waiting for it to all drip down, so I can remove the plastic wrap and tape and whatnot. But here is the semi-finish, and it is super glossy in this video, and this is how the other epoxy was too. Like, it was a shinier finish, and there's nothing wrong with that if you like it, but I just know that it shows more flaws, and it doesn't look as authentic to me as stone does. Stone is very matte, satin finish. So yeah, and it shows 2 scratches. That was one thing about the other countertop, my last countertop that I did. It showed a lot of the scratches, whether we'd move sacks or boxes on the countertops, or even just a plate moving across the countertop, it would show the scratch. So I noticed I had some drips here on my cabinet, so I just kind of scraped them off. My cabinets are waxed, so that's one good thing, is it did not stick to my cabinets very well. And I did have a sharp edge under the underside of my countertop, so I just took a razor blade or some sandpaper and sanded that down. You just don't want to get yourself cut, because some of that epoxy can be sharp if it drips, or it lines up on the tape just right with the sharp edge. So yeah, I didn't have much trouble with the drips under the countertop, but it was more just that one spot where I had it dripping on the tape, and it kind of made a pointed little edge. But to say that this epoxy is not messy, that's an understatement. It is. You can see in the video Even if you back up and watch it again, you can see how messy it is. So I just rolled it all up. I was so happy to be done with that. I think that's the most satisfying thing, is when you're done with a project, pulling the tape off and just getting to see the project as it is without tape. It's just like an aha moment. Oh gosh. Anyways, yeah. So I'm going to do the top coat. So what you do is you prep your surface. I taped behind my backsplash just so I wouldn't get any of this on my backsplash, just because you're rolling it on. It's not like epoxy. You're applying a heavy deal and it's getting it all over and it's dripping all over the place. You roll it on and you have about 15 minutes to work with it, I believe, before it starts to really cure and set up. So you have to work quickly. But you sand it, clean it with acetone, apply it with 2 different rollers, and they have a video on their page that explains all this that I've watched several of them. He's done a live video over it and also has a tutorial on his page about it too. But I didn't do this the last time, and I think this is going to be a game changer, just because the other brand didn't really offer anything like this. And I think it's going to make the countertops even more beautiful, because whenever I sanded these with my orbital sander, I started noticing how matte it looked, matte looking, and the finish on it, and I really like it a lot more. I think it looks more natural as a matte type finish, and I really like this. The durability too on the top coat, it gives it UV protection, heat and scratch resistant, helps with staining and everything else too. So you guys need to go watch, if you're doing any kind of epoxy on your countertops or your showers or your floor or whatever, go watch and about his top coat, because it's actually pretty interesting. Anyways, I'm gonna finish prepping this and get started. I didn't actually film this before, but I took 220 grit with my orbital sander. This is just a sanding pad just around the edges that I couldn't get to it, and sanded down my countertops. So before I did that, I cleaned my whole kitchen. I forgot that I was gonna have to sand, so I took all the plastic off my cabinets, took a magic eraser to my appliances, cleaned my cabinets, dusted them, everything like that, mopped the floor, and then I started sanding, and I was like, oh no, I should have took my plastic drop off. So learn from my lesson, learn from my mistake on that. So after the countertops are cured, I think they call for like 24 to 48 hours if I remember correctly, but you know, it's been 2 years, so I can't remember. But they have instructions on how to do the top coat. It's not that hard. We were kind of worried because it had a 15-minute cure time, but it was actually easier to put on than what we expected. Just make sure you have another person there helping you out. I think it's easier with 2 people, especially if you're doing a bigger project like I was. But I just love my countertops. They turned out great, and they still look really great. And I'll show you my 2-year update videos in just a few minutes or a few seconds. But yeah, I'm happy with them. They haven't yellowed or anything. And my family can have fun in the kitchen, and I don't have to worry about my countertops getting scratched up or getting stained real easily. Don't mind my dog. I just appreciate all the feedback that you guys do give us. It helps us grow and learn, just as doing the projects do. And if you guys are thinking about doing your countertops like this or in a similar fashion, I highly recommend
Stone Coat Countertops. My review on it, my feedback on it has been great. They've held up great, and there is no chips other than me chipping it because I accidentally hit it with a pan. So that was one thing I did. But as far as like hot things, cutting on it, which I haven't really cut on it, I use cutting boards anyways, there's not been any marks. So even my kids have painted on it. I have gotten mustard on it and it hasn't stained. Trying to think, coloring, my kids do everything up here, including painting, coloring, crafting, gluing, all kinds of stuff. So they have held up great. I am very happy with them, and I know in the future if I need to redo them, the brand I'm using is Stone Coat Countertops. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if this video helped you guys in any ways, please let me know in the comments. If you have any feedback, of course, and then like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed to our channel. And I really appreciate all the support you guys have shown us in the last couple years.